We spent like a full episode on this idea of the cost narrative that, the estimate isn't necessarily the deliverable, the story behind it is. We're framing it though, like as the GC's problem. So like, how do you help an owner understand what they're looking at? You got investors at times on some of your projects or capital partners, maybe board people, things like that. They may or may not understand construction. They speak finance very well. So now it's your job to sort of be that translator.
We are more open book with our development team and have an understanding of what they need to see. Certainly could show them all the detail if they needed to. They're not going to love that. And we've worked on understanding what those metrics are that they're looking for and what drives the pro forma. So it's what the average net rentable per unit is, what's the parking ratio, are we making sure that we're meeting the minimum that we need, if not what we prefer on the project. And I've developed over time different ways of looking at cost, also looking at different efficiencies or metrics on the project from a quantity perspective that I know drives things. Like average amenity size per unit is one that you don't necessarily always capture, but can be a driver. Same thing for parking. Parking adds a ton of cost, but is necessary. And so how can we minimize that impact as much as possible? So, locally, we have a lot of understanding around that and a lot of great conversations about where that's driving towards as early as conceptual, but oftentimes as we're heading into STs and beyond, and reminding them, hey, this is why we're at the point where we're at, because we, had to do this or we decided to do this. Doesn't mean we can't go back, but that's part of the process. But then moving up the chain with our investors on projects, we try to use a lot of the same folks region to region, because we've developed on our development side, they've developed those conversations and those reporting items with those folks fairly regularly. So we're easily able to take our narrative on the pre-con side to our development team and maybe decode a couple things, and then they're able to encode that for our investment side of things fairly easily. But our teams are great about explaining that story and understanding from the construction and pre-con side, the parts of the story that are important for them to tell as well.
Yeah.
Whereas, in the past, as a third-party GC at Callahan, I almost got none of that. And it was always about telling the story. And I wore multiple hats. I was a takeoff guy. I was a bid coordinator. I was an estimator. I was a storyteller. I was a analytics guy. It was everything. It's not that I'm not doing that here. It's more streamlined